Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I appreciate it. And I'd love it if you'd hit the like button on the way out. Check out some other videos that I have up here too. There's a lot of really good silversmithing information, especially if you're a beginner or if you're more experienced and you just want some ideas for projects. I wanted to give a special shout out to my newest patrons over at Patreon, Linda E. and Kim G. So thank you for joining. It's the support of you and my other patrons who make all of this possible. Um, that being said, let's talk about the project for today. I was going to do a wideband ring that has an overlay on it with a texture so that it kind of comes to a peak at the top and holds a faceted synthetic ruby. So I'm not sure what we're going to call it yet. I'm sure we'll come up with a name for it before we post it, but that's our project for the day. So let's get started. To start with, let's take a look at the stone. I have this little synthetic ruby. It's, let's see, where's my little ruler? It's about 9 by, I'm guessing 7. 9 by 7, I believe. And I think it's pretty. It's got a nice rich red color. Sometimes you find these and they're real pink, but this one's kind of red. So, all right. The materials we're going to use for the bezel, I'm going to use some. This one's actually 26 gauge, 3/16 inch fine silver bezel. It's a little bit thicker than the stuff I usually use. For this particular ring, I want it to be just slightly thicker. I'm going to use some 18 gauge round wire or 20 gauge round wire, depending upon what it seems like I need to create the little lip for the stone to set on the inside of the bezel, or a step if you prefer. For the outer band, I'm going to use some 18 gauge silver that I'm going to texture. And then for the inner band, I'm going to use some 22 gauge silver because I don't think I want it to be quite as thick there. So this is kind of my plan here. See, I've got just kind of a mock-up here. So I'm going to have the stone in the center held between these two outer pieces of what are going to be 18 gauge that's textured. And I want it to, from the side, I want the inner band to go here, outer band up like this, and attach to the side of the bezel. And I'm going to make this a short bezel so that some of the stone shows up from the side over here. I want that to peek through the side. But this will be elevated up off of the rest of the band a little bit. So stone should stick out, so I'm going to cut the bezel shorter, and then we'll put a lip on the inside, and then so that it will stick out a little bit. And we'll figure out how to solder it all together. But to start with, I think I'm going to make the inside band and cut the piece for the outside band. And I measured for a 7.5 already, which is what I decided to make this one. So this is to a 7.5. And I figure for the outer band, I'm going to run it through the rolling mill with one of these textured sheets that I've made that have a little bit of wire soldered to them in an interesting pattern. And then that, plus, which will squish it out a little bit longer. And also I added about a 1/2 inch extra on here to make sure it has enough room to go around the outside and peek upwards a little bit. So I'm thinking it's going to be quite a bit too long once I run it through the rolling mill. But we'll find out and trim it down if we need to. So anyway, I got enough length on this one here, but I'm going to need to straighten this edge a little bit, I think. I guess at this stage it doesn't need to be all that perfect since I'm going to run it through the rolling mill and then cut it down again. But I like to start from kind of a relatively square starting point. It's pretty straight. Not perfect, but that's okay. I figured about a 1/2 inch wide, so if you're somewhere else that doesn't use our inefficient units of measurement, 1/2 inch is roughly about, I don't know, 12 or 13 millimeters. So I want it to stick out a little bit beyond there, so maybe a little more than a 1/2 inch. A lot of people ask about these shears. These are just Fisker's craft shears, and probably by using these to cut 18 gauge, I'm shortening their lifespan. However, not leaving tooth marks. It's kind of a nice, but they're not very much. And quite honestly, this one survived for a while with me abusing it like this, so I think they're pretty well made. I said I don't care too much about the shape of this one yet because it's going to squish out a little bit when I run it through the rolling mill. So let's do that next and see how it turns out. Okay, this one I made a long time ago and I'm not sure how good of a pattern it'll come up with, but I liked the layout of the little wires that I soldered on there. So let's see how it does. We can run it through several times if we want to change up the pattern a little bit, so I hope you can see all right. Let's put it through this way again. Change the position on it a little bit. Put it through one more time. Just give it some interesting texture. Okay, so we got that one rolled out. We've got a pretty straight edge here, so I think I'm going to use that. And then let's measure for the inside ring. I always measure a little bit bigger. I was shooting for a 7.5, so it's a little bit higher than a 7.5 here. Also, if you're making a wide ring like this, generally if you wear say a size 7.5, you want to make it a size 8. Because wideband rings don't allow for the loose skin around your finger to go anywhere, so it has to be contained within the ring's inside part there. Alright, so let's do this one about 1/2 inch wide as well. Close enough. Okay, so lengthwise, rear band goes to right there. Make sure I measured right. You can see it's a little wider down here than it is down here, but I can correct that as I go. Just going to straighten this guy out a bit. Just like always, I'm going to make this like I would normally have, just a plain silver band. To do that, I'm going to make it into kind of a U shape first. We'll bend these ends together. Just make making sure these edges line up nice so we get a good seam. Something like this I usually solder from the inside and the outside just to make sure that I get full penetration of that seam. So let's cut myself some hard silver solder. Looks like we had a good seam penetration. Years ago I had one break on me and it made me a little paranoid ever since. It was probably just because I wasn't very good at soldering back then. Have some of the excess on the inside here. I'm doing this in front of the camera. This is not normally the way I round this out, but just so you get the basic idea. Probably do the rest on my knee. Set the mandrel on my knee. But this is the basic idea. Got this a little longer than this, but it wasn't that much longer, so when you roll it through the rolling mill it stretches things a little bit, which is good. So I really just have to decide which side I like better. I like this side better. Like I said, I'm going to cut it a little bit long so I have plenty of room to work with. About right there. I'm going to, while I was rolling it through the rolling mill, I work hard in this metal so it's a little on the stiff side. So I'm going to anneal it, which is to bring it up to pretty hot temperature and then let it cool off a little bit. And that softens up the metal again. I've never done this before. Working it with a hammer or with rolling it through something or twisting it or bending it or pounding on it all makes silver harder. This is a way to get it soft again. We passed 1,600 subscribers last week. Thank you, you guys. I really appreciate that. Makes me happy to know that people are finding these useful. Now I'm going to try how long this actually needs to be an outer sheath for that thing. This is basic idea. Solder those two together. I'm going to cut it a little bit shorter so I can actually get it to fit how I want it to. This is the idea I'm going for. So it's going to need to be separated by about that much. So a little bit more is going to have to come off still. And then I'll trim it off to the final length when I'm getting close to adding that bezel in. This together, I want this to, the end of it to meet about right there. Let's go a little bit longer. I'm marking the place where I'm going to start the taper. So there. Alright, so now I'll flatten this back out so I can cut it the way I want it to. So I need to find the center between these two lines, actually, because I'm going to end up cutting those off, likely. There. So we need to figure out how far in at the center we want it to taper to, and I want it to get pretty thin. So what if we go about 3/16 in from either side. Okay. 3/16 would be roughly 5 millimeters. What I'm going to do is make a mark from that point I measured in at the center here out to that corner where I marked. See that? Do the same thing this way. I'm trying to get it to meet right there. So hopefully I'm close. It might be easier to do this on the back side where the pattern isn't confusing to your eye. Maybe next time I'll do that. Okay, so I suppose I should use the saw to do this. Not my favorite thing to do, but for inside angles like this, it works pretty well. Okay, I think I'll start in the middle and work my way outwards. Alright, I did a little bit of cleaning up because, like I said, I'm not super good at sawing, so I saw it out roughly and then I smoothed it out with the Dremel and the file. So I think that's kind of the bow tie shape we're looking for. I think I'm going to put the previous solder joint on the bottom here. And probably the easiest way to, let me go ahead and shape this pretty well. And then I'm going to sweat some solder on the inside of this, and then we'll solder the whole thing together. This is kind of the look I'm going for, where it's smooth down here, it's got some texture up here. So I'm going to go ahead and administer a little solder on the inside of this band. Use this to make it easier to... Looks like I got plenty here, so... One thing I might do before I solder these together is it'll be easier to polish the edges of these a little bit smoother before I solder them together. Afterwards it might be harder to get those nice, so I'm going to do a little pre-polishing on those. Alright, so let's stick some solder in there. Quite a bit of solder on the inside of that. I haven't really made one quite like this before, but it seems like it might be kind of cool. I guess we'll find out. Try to get this lined up as best I can. I can always do some filing to adjust it, but I'm going to set it over the third hand, I think, to do this, so that gravity will help a bit, maybe. Okay. I think I'm just going to toss that in the pickle for a while. In the meantime, I'm going to burn myself. I'm going to make some bezel for this thing. So far my plan is working. We'll see. If you're making a bezel for a faceted stone, it's always easiest to set it on its table facet if it's got one. Solder jump to one side on that time. If you don't heat evenly, occasionally it'll jump over to one side. One side reached temperature before the other side did. There we go. It'll be interesting to see how this one turns out. Looks like we did okay on size, I think. Okay, now I need to make a platform on the inside of that. So I'm going to use some 18 gauge wire. I got pretty close on that one on the first try. That's not bad. Much better at this than I am at sawing. Who would have guessed? Let's solder that fellow in there. Make sure he's sitting pretty flat. I really enjoy the interactions in the comments section, so if you have things you're interested in or ideas for videos, let me know. Okay, now I just need to file that bottom flat. If you ever do this and there's still some little lines left that you don't like, you can always throw a few more pieces of solder on the pad and set it on top of that and redo it. And generally that'll clean up any rough looking spots that are left. Okay, so normally when I'm doing a faceted stone, I put more than one ring in there to lift it up higher so that the point doesn't stick down. But I actually want the point sticking down on this one. So I'm going to file this a lot shorter so that the bezel is not near as tall as that. Okay, so this has got to be mounted between these two. So it looks like I need to file them down both just a little bit. But I need to file the tops of these right now go like this. I need to file them like this. So we're doing this kind of a thing. I'm trying to file these vertically, widen them slightly so that that bezel fits in there nicely. And not scratch the inside circle there. Now we're starting to get somewhere. That's what I want it to look like. This one's going to sit up pretty high on your finger, but that's okay. The trick on this one is there's a lot of mass in the band, so most of the heating needs to be done down there. The bezel's pretty small comparatively. So our ring is assembled. I think it's time to pickle it, and then we'll clean it up and I'll set that stone and we'll polish it. So far so good. So I cleaned it up, did a lot of polishing, and I filed the bezel down to where I think the level should be. And with a square stone or a rectangular stone like this, sometimes the corners can be problematic, just because when you try to force that much bezel over the small space, it tries to wrinkle there. And so what I did was I filed the thickness of the bezel just slightly thinner on the corners, so that should help. I'm going to start two sides a little bit. Corners a little bit. When I'm doing the burnishing stage, which is what I'm doing right now, I'm putting a lot of pressure on that top edge to really force it to lay down on the stone there. I think I may do just a little touch up on the polishing on the top there. But that's generally the finished ring, so you can see it sits up a little bit like this. So you can see the pavilion of the stone a bit. And then it's got a texture on top of a smooth band, basically. So I'll try and get a little better picture and then we'll call it good. Thank you for watching the video, and make sure to hit the like button if you would on your way out, and I'd love to have you subscribe. If you'd like to support me either through joining my Patreon, or you can buy me a coffee, there's links for both of those in my video's description down below. So I'd love for your support. It's not required, but I do appreciate those who've done that. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Thanks for watching. Happy silversmithing. Take care.